Strength and conditioning has so many health benefits. It increases your work and movement capacity, increases muscle mass, increases connective tissue strength, joint stability. It increases bone mineral density, hormonal health, improves your sleep, improves your posture. It allows for you to live longer and live healthier. So if strength and conditioning is so good, why isn't everybody doing it? So I often hear that people think that they're lazy or that other people are lazy. Personally, I don't buy into this. I think that when people are healthy and they're vibrant, they feel energized and they want to move. And yes, moving more will help you want to move more. But if you are fatigued and run down and your body isn't healthy, then you don't want to move. So you need to figure out, is it a health issue that you can work on through eating and lifestyle modification to allow for more energy to come up so that you want to move more? And if you feel that you need external motivation from a coach to force you into movement, I don't believe in that either. I think that that's self-destructive behavior. I think that you should have an internal drive to move. Now, when it comes to time, this is where a lot of people struggle because they've got so many commitments. Yes, everybody gets 24 hours a day and everyone gets 7 days a week, and it's what we do with that time that makes a difference. But for some of us, we have work commitments, family commitments, and it's very hard to put aside a good chunk of time to get some work done. So I'm making this video for the people that can train once a week and what they can do with that. As a coach, I see a lot of clients that could only get to me one time per week, and I've coached people like that for 20 years. And outside of that, they can get some walking in, some general mobility stuff and just some light stuff, but they really only have that time. And I know it sounds to a lot of the people that are in the movement world that just love movement and that's their career, like those people are just making excuses, but it's a reality, and I want to help those people. And if they get fitter, get stronger, they'll want to move more, and they can inspire others to do the same thing. So this video is for the one-time-a-weekers. You could do the program twice and do it twice a week, but it's really about being efficient and trying to tick as many boxes as you can in a 20-minute session, so that way you can get all the benefits that I've listed as well as improve. So if you're consistent with that one session a week, then you can make some real lasting change. A great way to save time is just to have a home gym set up. So if you have some rings and some dumbbells, even just some rings and body weight, that's all you're going to need to do the base version of this program. If you've got some weights, even better. If you've got a gym membership that you can get to once a week, even better, because it just allows for more stimulus, and it also provides an environment where you can really focus, disconnect from everything else, and just focus on yourself and your own development. This video is for educational purposes only, so if you do have any dysfunction, pain that restricts you from performing the base level of these movements, it's your responsibility to look after your body and do the right thing. So I'm here just sharing with you what I feel can help a lot of people, but everybody has individual needs. These are general concepts that I think that most people would benefit from. But if you do have any dysfunction, any pain, definitely seek professional help. For bent arm pulling, I recommend the pull-up. The pull-up is a great exercise to stretch and strengthen the whole shoulder girdle, and it really activates that inner ape that's within all of our primate ancestry. So it's so important for us to break out, reach up, grab things, swing off things, and maintain that connective tissue strength and flexibility through the shoulder joint. And the pull-up does that. Now, for many, the full body weight pull-up is too hard, so you want to start with a version that you can assist your upper body with your legs. Even for those that can do a full body weight pull-up, I recommend doing assisted pull-ups so that way you can get an integration of the row pattern with the pull-up. And what I mean by that is getting the elbows right back. That way you're not just pulling in front of your body, but you're pulling through your body. That's why the rings work well, to really allow for that, and a rotational grip as well, I find is really beneficial for people. Now, if you do that full range, then you're eliminating the need for bent over rows and body weight rows, and you're also activating the biceps very heavily to be able to do that pull. You can save a lot of time and really get a good result. And if you develop the full range of motion pull up like that, then you're going to develop that whole chain. So you're not just going to do that partial range and get strong there, you're going to get strong the whole way through, really develop that lat through the full range, integrate those rhomboids and traps between the shoulder blades, and really allow for the forearms and the arms to develop nicely. The most effective bent arm push exercise is the push-up. Now I like it because if you go very deep into the push-up, you're replacing the dip. And then if you push right through into a piked up position, then you're conditioning that overhead press. So you're really allowing for that dip, horizontal push, and that vertical push all in one push. So it saves a lot of time. And then you're also getting rid of tricep extensions. So very practical. Now, if you're starting out, you want to start out with a level that you can do with good form. Go to the ground, then go in between two objects, so parallettes or two boxes or two dumbbells or the rings. And then you want to learn to press overhead with every rep. So that way you're going into that overhead push position. So if you're up on an object, you might push into that forward bend and press overhead, or into a down dog or into a pike. If you're very strong, then you'll be able to do the full 90-degree push-up in parallel, so you're getting that dip right up into that press handstand position. Now that would be very advanced and that would be ideal, but for most of us, then just working with those basic push-up progressions is awesome, and it will develop the shoulders in a really good way. So those deep positions are going to stretch and strengthen the shoulder, and then pressing right up overhead is going to allow for that optimal alignment and full range of motion strength. Handling and throwing objects while moving over uneven terrain with a vertical torso and a horizontal gaze with the eyes is a very human ability. Now, a lot of people criticize meat eaters, saying that we shouldn't eat meat because we don't have large teeth, we don't have large jaws, we don't have claws like a carnivore, but we do have tool handling ability. Now this is very important because this is even more vicious, especially when you combine that with our deadliest tool, our brain, which allows us to communicate with one another and work in communities to be able to hunt and to kill. Now, our ability to do those things physically is limited by the lunge and the twist pattern. Keeping those patterns in your weekly program is essential to activate your genes so that you can have optimal expression of your body. The most basic lunge is to perform the hip flexor stretch. Now you can perform this just straight square, and then you can hit some different directions with it as well, which really open up and challenge the hip and allow it to have that three-dimensional strength. Then you can go into a step back lunge, placing the hands on the knees, then body weight, then going into a step forward lunge. Then you can start to work multi-directional lunges. So you'll go to the side, lateral, that way you'll get that nice adductor stretch, so doing away with side split stretching. And then the front one is obviously going to do away with that front split stretching for the back leg. Then you can go into some transverse rotational plane lunges, which allow for that winding up and unwinding of the hip. Once you've got the lunge pattern down, then you can integrate the twist pattern with the upper body. Now the twist pattern is awesome. It's going to replicate that open chain ability of throwing objects, of holding objects, and it does away with open chain training, especially if you're doing a pull-up and a push-up, which are closed chain, meaning you're moving over an object. That way, when you're lunging, you're also getting the open chain pull and push pattern with the upper body. So that does away with any work that you would do moving an object, and that way it makes good, efficient use of your time in the gym. You can hit all different directions with this. So I like doing the curtsy lunge, a straight lunge, 45-degree lunge, a lateral lunge, 45 to the back, straight back, curtsy lunge to the back, and then a rotational lunge. Now all of these can be done with weight and with the twist pattern. Then you could also use a cable machine to chop with them, and then you can also use a band as well, which is like the poor man's cable machine, which I find very effective. It's not as ideal because the loading changes. Obviously, when the band stretches out, there's more intensity and more resistance, and when the band's shorter, there's less. But it's still very effective, and if you couple that with some object moving in the twist pattern, then you're going to have great development. Bending to pick up objects off the floor is hardwired into our survival. So our ability to get our hands to the floor while still being on 2 feet allows us to move and manipulate objects, as well as be able to get to the ground and get back up. Now, if you can't do this, this really challenges you and it makes your life feel very limited. So I work with a lot of elderly clients, and this is so important to be able to achieve this and maintain this. It's very much an anti-aging exercise. And if you find that you have some spinal instabilities because you've overinvested in chair time, then it's time to work on those. You don't necessarily need to go too heavy in the bend pattern or the deadlift. You need to work on stabilizing your spine at a lower level and work on that hip mobility and range of motion. You might find that using more of an upright posture to load up is more effective at the beginning while you're rebuilding and regenerating your spine, or you may have done too much damage, so that way you will not be able to lift heavy like that, but you can maintain that ability at light loads, and then for heavier lifting you keep more of a vertical trunk. The vertical trunk position allows for much more hip mobility, so I find it's very effective as well, but it's so essential to be able to get those hands down to the ground. And if you can do that with good hip mobility and not have to round out, then that's going to strengthen that pattern even more. A lot of people will talk about rounding the back versus keeping the spine still, and argue that we should be able to round our back out and that we should train that, as well as some people argue that we should never do that. And I'm of the opinion that we need to do both. Now, the spine, as well as any joint in the body, is much stronger isometrically than it is dynamically. And what that means is that when it's stiff and still, it's going to be stronger than when it's moving. Now, it is going to be stronger, like all joints, when you're lowering the weight, hence why people can lift heavier loads when, as they're lifting off the ground, the back slowly rounds out, because they're actually using an eccentric contraction in their back. So as they're going up from the lift, their back's slowly rounding out, and you're always 1.5 times stronger lowering your weight than you are lifting it. So that may be a bit technical, but basically that's why people are able to lift very heavy weights and the back slowly opens out, as opposed to keeping an arch in the back. Now, I like to teach people with heavy loads to keep the arch, and then if they're doing light stuff or higher reps, they can round it out, because it's very important to maintain a dynamic ability in the spine, not just a static ability, because even though the hip joint is so much bigger, and that's where you want to exert all the force for heavy loads, for light loads you want to be able to round your back out and do things, so that way whenever you do it, you don't hurt yourself. But for lifting weights, I prefer to teach that neutral spine position. And then if you were doing like 3 to 5 or 6 to 10 type reps, then you would do that neutral spine. And then if you're doing much lighter weights, you're going to work with, say, 11 to 15 reps, then you should be able to round your back out if your back's healthy. Now, if you have a bad back, then you just avoid that and just keep that spine stable and just work on mobilizing the hip and stabilizing the spine, so you have that awesome hip-back disassociation. If you were using these 4 movements in a session, there's different ways you can put it together. I like training with a variety of different reps, so that way I keep all the different fiber types alive in my body. So I like doing 3 to 5 reps heavy. I like doing kind of 6 to 10 reps in that moderate range to develop muscle. And I also like doing 11 to 15 reps, usually kind of 11 to 12, to get more postural endurance and strength endurance in movement patterns. So if you were going to use all 3 in one session, you might do couplets, like 2 couplets, and you may do the pull-up and the lunge twist together and do, say, 3 to 5 sets of that with 3 to 5 reps, and then do the push-up and the bend, the deadlift, together for 3 to 5 sets at those lower reps. Then you would go into the second part of the workout and go back to the pull-up and the lunge twist, but at lighter loads, and then you go 6 to 10, and then do the same for the push-up and the deadlift. Then for the high rep stuff, I'd even recommend just doing a no-rest circuit, where you're going from a really light pull-up, going into a really light push-up variation, into a light lunge twist variation, and then into a really light deadlift pattern. And that way you're going to get that strength endurance, not just because you're doing high reps, but you don't have a rest between the movements. And if you put those 3 kind of training parameters on one session, then you're kind of ticking so many boxes. Now, the only other thing that I would recommend in that one session is some crawling exercises. I like crawling up and down the room. I find that really beneficial for the hips, for the shoulders, for the spine, and all those infant development exercises are great for normalizing and stabilizing spinal curvatures. I hope all this material helps. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you soon.